After the city elections votes were tallied, Omaha social activist Joaquin Fox tweeted a letter signed #Justice for James. That letter was written to newly re-elected Mayor Gene Stothert. The letter called on Stothert to build a bridge over tragedy, comparing the killing of James Scurlock during a protest for police accountability last summer to Stothert's husband, Dr. Joe Stothert's recent death. This is what that letter looks like. It discusses gun violence and says, quote, "You have recently experienced a deeply personal loss. We understand," end quote. It goes on to ask the mayor to connect with Black and brown communities in the city and show more empathy. The letter asks her to, quote, "take the chance to transform the seemingly adversarial relationship into a partnership that strengthens the city." Well, 3 News Now reporter John Kipper sat down with Stothert to look back on last year. He asked her if she'll make any changes in this new term and about that letter that was addressed to her. Take a look.
That night, I remember it like it happened this morning.
Mayor Gene Stothert says she has vivid memories of when the Friday night protests first broke out in the city of Omaha. She recalls consistent updates from the police chief. And as the protests moved downtown during the weekend, she worried for the business owners, police, and the protesters themselves.
It was frightening, I will tell you, for me to understand what was going on in this city because I wanted people to be safe.
Once the dust settled, Stothert said she and Chief Schmatter got to work, putting in new policies like requiring officers to intervene. Stothert also says the department was already doing things the protesters wanted. That includes the ban on chokeholds and using a system that flags potentially problematic officers.
That officer up in Minnesota wouldn't have been an officer in Omaha, Nebraska.
Stothert said the overall message of the 2020 protests in Omaha was productive, and she truly heard what they were saying.
What our approach was, we listen, we learn, we don't want to repeat our past mistakes, and we try to develop a plan for the future that's community-based.
During and after the protests, she says she attempted to engage with some of the activists, including a sit-down meeting in her office with one of the leaders. She also met with protesters outside City Hall in the middle of the June protests.
And I thought, well, I'm going to go out there and listen to them and talk to them. I'll do it myself. And I just got up and grabbed my staff and said, we're going to go out there right then.
But that did not go as she hoped.
But to stand in solidarity with our protest.
I was cussed at, sworn at, I was spit on. I was called all sorts of vulgar and profane names, and I was out there to listen.
She also recalls when she delivered the budget to the city council and said in no uncertain terms that she would not defund the police.
Defunding the Omaha Police Department would be irresponsible and reckless, and I will not do it.
Defund the police!
That action upset many activists at the meeting.
I was interrupted, I think they counted no less than 15 times, by people yelling profane, vulgar language at me while I'm trying to present the budget to the city council. That doesn't help the communication at all.
She says dialogue on tough issues like police reform needs to be civil.
I'm willing to talk to anybody about it, but the conversation has to be at least respectful. It has to go both ways.
Now in 2021, Stothert easily won another term as mayor, with one of her campaign tenets being an inclusive city. Last week, the Omaha City Council passed a resolution condemning hate in all forms. She also hired a deputy chief of staff with a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion last year. She says the man she hired, Keefe Station, will continue to work to show if city government can be inclusive, the rest of the Omaha business community can also be.
Everything from our hiring practices to our testing that we do to our recruit classes, we want to be an example for all businesses in Omaha.
With another 4-year term on the horizon for Stothert, she says she'll continue to be open to dialogue. All of it to make the city better.
If you're going to be better, you got to work together. It's not just one-sided. It can never be just one-sided.
In Omaha, John Kipper, 3 News Now.
Now, Stothert also points to lowering crime rates throughout the city, saying she and Chief Schmatter's community policing approach is working.